Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us to explore how LearnCoach may be of value to your school and its students. I'm Brett Watson, General Manager of Growth at Campion Education. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Before we dive into today's demonstration, I'd like to give a brief overview of Campion CuratED. Campion Education has always helped schools source and supply the best textbooks and resources for their students to support their learning journey. As technology has advanced, there is greater opportunity for schools to support this journey in different ways. However, choosing the right resources become more complicated than schools forever. Our ambition is to bring together the best-in-class digital products and services from around the world, localized for Australian schools, supporting all stages of the learning journey. It's also for Campion to be a partner for schools to make the best decisions for them and their community. Each product within Campion CuratED portfolio addresses a specific challenge faced by a school while contributing to a broader ecosystem that supports the teaching and learning journey. Schools can select the products that best align with their context and priorities. All the products are localized for Australian schools, are digitally secure, and integrate seamlessly with the Campion ecosystem. LearnCoach fits this specification perfectly. Since 2012, LearnCoach has supported tens of thousands of students in New Zealand. As they launch into Australia, they are focused on helping students improve their exam performance in years 11 and 12, and are doing this by rebuilding their platform specifically to align with the Australian curricula, starting with science. I'm now happy to introduce Adam Walmsley from LearnCoach to give us more information on the platform. Welcome, Adam, all the way from New Zealand.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Make sure it's all working. Okay, so hopefully you can all see that. So yeah, as mentioned, I was really grateful to be here. My name is Adam. As mentioned, I'm from LearnCoach, an exam preparation platform that has been around for 10 plus years in New Zealand. And, as mentioned, we're now making the jump to Australia and partnering with Campion to do that. So we're really grateful to be able to share with you a bit more about LearnCoach today. So today I wanted to share 4 areas that we've found that can boost or kill exam performance. Now, to start with, I want to tell you about a survey we did a few years ago in New Zealand. So at the start of the school year, we asked 5,000 senior secondary school students what grades they were expecting. So the green lines here are an A grade or the top grade that you can get. And the crazy part is how many students intended to get a top grade during the year. So you see the big green graph, quite tall. But then around exam time near the end of the year, things started to crash. So we wondered if there was an opportunity to elevate people's grades to match those good intentions that they had throughout the year. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So, can we turn these good intentions that students have throughout the year and turn those into good grades at the end of the year when it really matters? So I want to share that the research we've done, barriers we've found when it comes to study, and what we've tried, and we've tried a lot of things over the years, but I wanted to share the things we've found that actually help. So we know that exams are one of the most stressful things for students. So of all the things that a teenager can worry about, this is right up there. We also know that practicing exam questions is one of the most important things a student can do to get their best results. Physically forcing the brain to actively retrieve information in context is what actually locks it into long-term memory. Think of it like learning to play a sport or musical instrument. You actually have to get out there and physically practice the skill yourself if you want to perform on game day. Now, the problem is people do things like reading over their notes, highlighting important content in their workbooks or textbooks, rewriting out their notes for the 10th time, or trying to learn everything at the last minute. This is like learning to play football by reading or highlighting your football notes on how to play. Now, it's not the worst thing, but it's a long way from the best way to learn and get better. Now, you might be aware that the Football World Cup is currently on in the United States, and Australia is there. Now, I don't think Australia would have won their first game like they did the other day if they had skipped all the warm-up matches leading up to the World Cup. So if exam study is the biggest pain point for students, and we know that exam questions are critical, but students still aren't doing it, what's actually stopping them? Now, these answers that I'm about to share are based on thousands of students who do millions of study sessions on LearnCoach. And we've found 4 moments when things get hard and students quit study to do something else, like scroll on their phones or play video games. Now, the first moment is when students first sit down to study and they don't know where to start. So they spend their time trying to think about what to do instead of actually doing the study. For example, this might look like, say, the student who procrastinates for half an hour. Often they don't really know where to start. Or the student who spends 3 days getting their perfect color-coded study plan that they may or may not ever follow. They're all struggling with that problem of not really knowing the best thing to do. And the outcome of all this is that they've wasted a lot of time and energy not making real progress. And then for those that do get started, the next moment is when they realize the test is really soon and there's a lot left to learn. Now, what happens is students mean to practice exam questions, but they simply run out of time. The classic case here is that students forget that they have 3 tests to study for instead of 1 in a particular week. And you really don't want the first time you see an exam question to be on exam day. It's a recipe for disaster. So for those on the call, now this is a bit of a rhetorical question. Any guesses on what percentage of students who say they're going to really practice exam questions a lot actually get around to doing that? Well, it's actually 1 in 4. So let's say you are one of the 1 in 4 students who gets through all that and they attempt exam questions. Now, what happens is students pull up a long question and instantly think it's too hard, even if they know the content. Or the question uses the context of birds, and they think, I didn't study birds, even though it's just an example. So there are many reasons why students constantly lose marks, even when they know it, simply because they feel stuck and don't have a good way of moving on. Now, what's worse, without help, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy where they believe it's too hard and then prove themselves right when it's a struggle. Now, when a student has finished an exam question, the students don't know if they've done enough. They have no feedback. This is like the student who looks at the model answer, and even though their answer is lacking, they think, it's basically what they said. Or they miss a critical detail that would have given them the marks, or they include too much irrelevant stuff trying to show off to the examiner and miss the key point. Now, that was definitely me as a student. And whatever the case, instead of improving on their answer, they just move on to the next task. And then if they get through all of that, then what? We're back at the beginning, thinking about what to do next instead of actually doing the study. And then to make matters worse, this all happens in a tough environment that is, firstly, time pressured. We wish they didn't cram, but the reality is most students do most of their exam preparation in the final 30 days before their exam, and commonly the night before. And secondly, they hate study, or at least we can say that people don't study for fun. I think we can all agree on that. So given all of this, the ultimate challenge for us as a company was seeing if we could help students get exam ready in 30 days without wasting their time. and turn those good intentions into better grades. So there are a lot of reasons students don't or can't follow the researched advice of do exam study or do exam questions. And so next, I want to show you a quick video of how the LearnCoach platform works. And then I want to dive in a bit more and discuss how we're addressing each of these barriers. So give you that high level first, and then address those things, and then we can always, dive in more into the platform as well. As desired. So let me pull up the video. And I guess for anyone from Campion, pull me up if for whatever reason you can't hear this.
Most students don't practice exam questions enough, even though it's the biggest predictor of exam success. So LearnCoach is working to change that with exam first learning. So whenever you click into a subject, the first thing you'll see is a whole series of exam questions organized by topic. And the idea is that from day one, students can start trying real exam questions with personalized support. So in this video, we're going to look at the 3 different types of study a student does and the 2 things you can do as a teacher on LearnCoach. Starting with students. The number 1 thing is clicking into exam questions and giving them a go. So once students have read through a question, it depends on their confidence level. If they're feeling very confident, they can try and answer themselves. Now the tutor support is always available on the site, so they can ask questions or click buttons for assistance. And once a student has attempted the answer, they can get feedback on the question, seeing what they did well, and the areas of improvement, with help always available. This creates a continuous practice, feedback, and improvement loop. Now, if students aren't quite ready to tackle the question by themselves, they can work through the question with a tutor who will break down the strategy step by step, so the student and the tutor can work through to construct an answer. And finally, if a student is just getting started or has very low confidence, they can watch how a tutor uses exam strategies to break down the question, highlighting the question, watching how they have an approach, and finally, how they write out their answer. At any point, they can pause the video and get explanations of what's going on. This means regardless of student confidence, they can start practicing the exact exam skills they'll be assessed on from day 1. But for those students who may have missed things in class and aren't ready for exam questions, there's a second mode of learning. This is called recaps. When a student clicks into recaps, they'll be able to scan all the information that they need to know for that topic. If students don't understand this information, they can click play and a student will explain everything that's going on for them. If the information is familiar to the student, they can take a recap test. This makes sure that students can both recognize the right information and can recall that information when brought up in a new question. So this is how students do self-directed study on LearnCoach. If we move over now to the teacher side, you'll be able to monitor your classes and how they're progressing in the self-directed study. You click over onto the tab of Monitor Students, and you'll be able to see how students are actually progressing across different topics, seeing what they've covered, their performance, and how exam ready they really are. But the second thing you can do as a teacher is you can set homework for students. So you can browse any of the same activities a student might see and allocate these for homework. For example, you might decide to add this exam question to homework and this exam question to homework. Or you might also add in some recap lessons on the similar topics. When I'm ready, I can confirm the activities, check the details, make sure I've assigned it to the right class, and allocate this work to my classes. Back over on the student side, students need to click on the homework tab. At this point, any work you've set will turn up here for students, and they can start working through that little by little. And that is the third mode of study. Back on the teacher page, you'll see that the student has been added and will be able to monitor their progress throughout each activity. So whether you're a student doing homework or whether you're doing self-study on LearnCoach, it ensures students aren't just reading notes, they're actually practicing skills they'll be assessed on. So talk to Campion about getting set up on LearnCoach.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you kind of an initial overview or a sense of how the platform works. Now, we've tried dozens of things over the years that didn't work so well, but I wanted to highlight 5 parts of the platform that actually did make a difference to student study and why that works. So the first key thing was actually making the goal clearer to students. So this is critical for motivation. So as we established, students don't study for fun, but they do study for their exams. So having the exam questions front and center has been really important. Now, while this might sound really obvious to you, we have to explain to students, you will do well in your exams if you can answer exam questions, obviously. So let's learn how to answer exam questions. So bringing the exam questions front and center so they can see that, I'm answering exam questions so I can do well in my exam is incredibly engaging and critical in motivating students to continue to study. Now, the next important thing was having a sliding answer scale. So this means being able to engage with any particular exam question from easy to hard levels of answering. So when students see an exam question, they often freak out and it feels too hard. So having easy answering options, as you saw in the video, means that anyone can start doing exam questions right away, or at the very least, they can watch a tutor and learn how they would answer. So this solves the problem of I ran out of time to answer exam questions, because you can actually start engaging with exam questions from day one. Now, assuming you did answer yourself, feedback is really important. So one of the most frustrating things is when a student knows the material, but they end up bombing with the exam questions in the exam. So what we wanted to show students was how to capture all the marks they can, including things that they did well so that they can keep doing them, what they missed, what they got wrong, and other ways that they could boost their grades. In other words, students will start learning how to get good marks early on. And then invariably, there will be gaps in student knowledge. So it's important to just find and isolate those gaps and fill them as efficiently as possible. So this includes, videos to build understanding, summary notes for quick recaps, and quizzes to check that they remember everything. And then the goal is to just get them back to practicing and answering exam questions. And there's one more feature that wasn't included in the video, but that's coming really soon. So should be available for those that want to trial LearnCoach for free next term in term 3. And this one is around personalised adaptive study plans. So basically based on the student's goal, confidence and performance, it'll guide the student on the most productive way to study exam questions. So this means the students with an exam tomorrow isn't doing the same study as a student if it's 3 months out, or the student who missed weeks of class isn't doing the same as the top student. So it finds the most efficient and effective way to study. And this solves that what should I do next problem, because it just helps the students know what they need to do next. So what's really going on here is that when a student succeeds in an exam question, they get a bit more confidence and motivation. So then they try a little harder because of that, which means they succeed on more questions, giving them more confidence, and so on in a virtuous cycle called the self-efficacy cycle. So by putting exam questions in front of students and helping them succeed in exam questions early, we're aiming to jumpstart the cycle and get the flywheel spinning as fast as possible. And that's why exam study is so important. You know, all of these study barriers and the way we try to overcome them are all to get students experiencing that feeling of success. Because if they experience that, you know, the belief, the drive, the hours of study that follow, that is what will make all the difference. Now, I hope this gave you a bit of an idea of what we do. Now, for the next, I think, 15 to 20 minutes, and it really depends on how much people want to go through, I wanted to, well, pass the time on to those that are here to help decide how we want to spend that time. So, for instance, you know, I'm happy to provide more background on LearnCoach as a company. Happy to demo. I can pull up a demo and go through any parts of the platform live that you're interested in looking at in a bit more detail. I can also answer, you know, the best I can, any questions that you have, basically. And I guess if there's, I don't know if any questions have come up, but while you think about questions, if you have them, I've got a list of questions, so I'm happy to go through a bunch of questions that if I was on your side, I'd probably want to know, and also questions that we commonly get. So I'll go through those, and this is being videoed, so it'll be useful for those that are on the other end that might not get a chance to answer questions. But if you have a question, if there's anything you want to see, I want this time to be spent in a way that those that are here would want to see it. So I don't know if any questions have shown up. If not, no. So let me just go through and I'll answer some questions, maybe show you some things, and hopefully that's helpful for those that watch this video later. So first question is, so what subjects, year levels are you starting with in Australia? Now, I know Brett did touch on this. So yeah, we're starting with the science subject area. So this includes biology, chemistry, and physics. Now on the screen here, we've got WA, Western Australia, which splits out biology into biology and human biology, but in New South Wales, Vic, and soon Queensland, which we'll have ready very soon. Yeah, we will have the biology, chemistry, and physics, which are separated in that way. In terms of what we're thinking about as far as expanding on subjects, in case you're wondering, it'll partly depend on how Australia resonates with this sort of tool, but we're open to doing subjects like the maths, the commerces, even English, and some of those subjects are stuff we could go into as demand, as there is demand, but certainly maths would likely be the next, and maybe commerce, and I think psychology might be in there as well. So again, we've started narrow just because it is a bit of an investment coming in, and of course we don't want to create stuff if it's not actually useful. So this will be something that we'll be closely working with Campion to kind of hear what it is people are wanting and how we can best serve their needs. As far as another question is around, how can you get access to try LearnCoach? So if you want to try LearnCoach, we highly recommend the way to do that is to talk to Campion. So if you're account manager or your designated person at Campion, talk to them about getting access for LearnCoach. Campion is providing, or us together with Campion are providing free trials, full access trials in term 3. So you can really give it a go, let students have a play around with it as they start to prepare for their end of year exams. Just really highly recommend just getting in there and engaging with it, and really I would recommend giving it to the students and letting them tell you what they think about it. And I think it's again great as a teacher to have a look at it, but again the proof will be in the pudding as to how students find it and whether they find it useful. because that's ultimately what we really want, is to provide something that actually motivates a student to practice so they can get their best results, which I know all of us care about the most. Let's go through another question, and I guess Brett or someone can interrupt me if someone else comes up with something. Otherwise, I'll keep going through some questions that could be useful. So another question is, the exam questions that we have on LearnCoach, are they real exam questions? So yes, these exam questions are based on past paper exam questions that students would have done in previous years, and we separate those out, by state and by curricula. So the students in Victoria are doing questions that are analogous to what has shown up in exams for VCE students, and same within the other states. So there are slight differences, and very similar, but differences in the exams, and also slight differences in the material. So everything is tailored to both the state curricula and state exams. Let's see. Another question that comes up is around ST4S, so Safer Technologies for Schools. So in New Zealand, the New Zealand Ministry of Education, we've been dealing with in New Zealand for many years. They have endorsed ST4S, and I think in the next couple of years, ST4S in New Zealand will be something that is essential to have. And so up until now, it hasn't been an essential thing in New Zealand, but we know in Australia, they're probably a couple of years ahead. So it's quite important to have ST4S. And so we're currently working on getting assessed for ST4S. So the goal is to have it by the end of the year. So that way, those that are jumping on full time next year to give it a real go and pay for this, will know that we're meeting all of those requirements of ST4S in Australia. Let's see. In case you're interested in a little bit more background into LearnCoach as a company, so LearnCoach was founded by a former physics teacher here in New Zealand, and he was teaching, I guess at the time, at an all boys school, and he had made the mistake of telling each student, hey, you can book a 15-minute after school, you can book 15-minute slots for me to do some free private tutoring, and you can bring whatever questions you have and I'll answer them. And he quickly found that was sucking up all of his time every night, and that wasn't a viable long-term solution, as well as there were students that could do with a lot more than 15 minutes and who couldn't necessarily afford a private tutor. And so, LearnCoach initially started as YouTube videos. So for the first sort of from 2012 to 2016 was just a YouTube channel that ended up, growing to maybe 30, 40,000 subscribers. New Zealand's obviously a smaller country, but those videos got shared around. And then it was in about 2016 as, a lot of these learning platforms started to, a lot more learning platforms were coming on, and there was more of a need to have quizzes and things that go along with it, that LearnCoach turned into a platform that was then made initially accessible to just parents to purchase, and then eventually in the early 2020s moved to supporting schools to make it all widely available for more students, not just those that could afford a $300 subscription, and it's certainly not that price for schools, but so it's quite cheap and affordable for what we do with schools. And so I guess LearnCoach has always tried to be on the forefront of innovation around what would help students as far as exam study. So in the early 10s, videos that were accessible at any time was innovative. And then, in the mid 2010s, a platform with quizzes and a bit of feedback. Really basic feedback was quite innovative then. And now with over the past 5 years with AI coming out, LearnCoach has done a lot of research even before ChatGPT came out, and then now that various large language models have come out, and we've been able to implement some of that research that we did in a more scalable way. And so we're always looking at what technology can be really used in an accessible way, and not jumping too far ahead, because we know that you can jump so far ahead that it's not usable for students or teachers. So you kind of got to find where the student is at and what they would feel comfortable engaging with AI. And so we try to balance that, using technology in an effective way with also figuring out what a student will actually engage with. And if we're throwing them all this new stuff that they won't engage with, that's pointless as well. So it's a real balance there. And I guess I think we saw another slide, but as far as our usage in New Zealand, we have students and teachers in about 90% of New Zealand schools that use LearnCoach in various subjects. So we do cover lots of subject areas in New Zealand, and we also deal with a lot of legacy resources as well, which we don't have to, that will be less relevant for Australia. But yeah, we're widely used and have a good reputation here in New Zealand. So hopefully we can, build some trust here in Australia. And I was born in Melbourne, so I'll claim my Australian status as I work with Australia. Let's see. What other. A question that you might be, again, it might be something that could be interesting for those that watch this back. It may be obvious, but I'll just show a slide. This slide so people can look. And so this is more around how we're, point of difference of something like a LearnCoach. Now, we're not the only resource in the world that tries to do this sort of stuff. Haven't seen as many do it like LearnCoach does, say, in Australia, but yeah, people will ask, how's this different than a student just using ChatGPT to try and study exam questions, or more traditional resources, which, to be honest, was what LearnCoach was for many years, with just around videos and basic quizzes with very limited feedback. And so this is, something that you can pause and kind of look at as far as why the positives of a resource like LearnCoach, specifically for helping students to practice exam questions, versus this particular use case with just using something like ChatGPT or traditional resources. And it's generally stems on that better feedback, being able to diagnose where the mistakes are, and what sort of strategies might fix that. And I guess it's the sort of things that a private tutor or any one of you teachers that are able to spend a decent amount of time with a student could do this, potentially better than a lot of these tools. But it's the fact that students spend a lot of their exam study time having to do it alone, and you as a teacher don't have the time to really help students in the level of detail that they might want with that many students. So just people can pause that and have a look at it in the video. What I'll do is I'll also, let me just pull up, since we do have, it still looks like we've got a little bit of time. So maybe what I'll do is, just so people have a live demonstration of an example. So what I'll do is I'll pull up an example of a question. So this is BCE Unit 3, Area of Study 1. Here is an exam question. So a student can go into that exam question. You've got the question, you've got the image, if they need to see the image. We break it down, so give them a couple of, maybe they can do it without this, but that just kind of helps to break down the question and give them a little bit of guidance around the question if they really need it. We've got this help tool on the side, which has that tutor chat. didn't mention in the video, but this notes part actually has dedicated notes specific to every single individual question. So as you go through this question, you've got all these curated notes that help provide, all the key bits of information that a student might need related to this question, or any knowledge they need to know. And then you've got, again, you've got those 3 levels of answering the question. So again, when it gets closer to exam time and a student's confident, would encourage them to try it themselves. And so just so we can see kind of a live demonstration of how that could work. So I've put in an answer, and we make sure we have all the kind of key symbols here that could be used in the exam question. And you can mark it. While we're doing that, on this resource tab on the side here, if it's physics and there's formulas that you'd get in the exam, the formulas will be there so that the students can use those formulas, also copy in the formulas, because sometimes it can be a bit annoying doing formulas and stuff, writing them into questions like this. So we try to make it really easy. They can copy a formula in and then adjust the numbers. So, we try to keep working to make answering the exam questions in the browser as easy as possible. But here we see in this case, the student has got, or me as the student who's not very good at science, got 2 out of 5. They can have a look here and see where they went right, and where they got their marks and where they didn't. So I can see that, hey, I earned a mark for doing this part, I earned a mark for doing this, but I missed out on these 3 marks, and gives me a bit of information around what I missed, and then provide some evidence here if they want to go through that. And then down here with my question, it highlighted and gives comments over here, so it lets them know what they did well. Always good to give positive feedback. It's no good just hearing the negative stuff, because it depresses you. But there's also things that we didn't do that we should have done to get the marks. So this enables students to have a look at what they missed. If the student, goes, yeah, I get this, they could try typing it in. If they're a little confused and want a bit more information about how to do that, they can click Show Me How, and we'll automatically get the tutor chat on the side. To give them some information, provides examples of what they could write. You could say simplify this and it'll make it shorter. You could say give an example and it'll provide another example. So you can do that. Or you can go back here and pick from any of the common things students ask with this question, or you can type in anything you want to know. And then the idea is, to have the students be able to then build a better answer. And so if I was to go through these things, look at the notes, I could work on building a better answer and practice doing that. So even if I can't answer it all at once, I can learn and work with the digital tutor to formulate a good answer that then I can try and learn and then practice again later. So if I just skip to, let's just say I've gone through that and I've written out a better answer. Okay, showing me that I've got the marks 5 out of 5, so they can look at those details. They can check the comments to see what they did, what they did well. And yeah, you've got the 5, you've got the marks correct. They can save their answer. It does do an auto save, but they can click that if they want to make sure it's saved. A lot of students want to come back later. They'll go through, create good answers. They'll go away later and they'll come back and, they want to come back later in the year and see the good answers and then practice them again and revise those answers. And so, yeah, that gives an example of all the types of support. So there's plenty of support there to help the student if they need guidance. We've got this answer step by step. So those that aren't quite ready for that, this is a way to practice building your answer, or, building an answer step by step, with a mixture of short answer and multi-choice. And so short answer tends to be slightly harder. And so for this example, it can be a little bit easier when students know the content. Sometimes just the whole question, having to do 5 parts all at once, is a bit scary. But when you break it down, they're like, okay, how will you define a protomo in your answer? And a lot will go, oh, okay, well, I know that. I can do that. And so they can put in an answer. They can check that answer. And hopefully it works. Shouldn't be this long. Should definitely not take that long. Let's see if I go back to here. Let's just try. Well, here's a troubleshooting thing. So what happens if something doesn't work? Oh, this could be my internet. Yeah, I'll try refreshing the page. If the page isn't refreshing, it could be my very rural New Zealand internet, which is meant to be really fast because it's Starlink. Oh, there we go. So it looks like something is wrong with my internet. Okay, well, you saw it in the video, so apologies if, let me just see. Let me try again. Hopefully my internet's back. Okay, there we go. Apologies. My internet can be a bit spotty sometimes. So, so then you look and go, okay, cool, I got that answer. And then you see it starts to build their answer. And then they might look at this question and go, oh, I'm not sure about this. Okay, I can go to here. I know that answer. And then they can build, and then they might look and go, oh, this one, oh no, I can go back. And so they can practice lots of questions this way, which is just a slightly easier kind of bridge between watching someone doing it and doing it completely yourself. And then we've got the other way, which again is a tutor talking through the strategies and what you need to know and how you can answer and how that links to the marketing schedule and things like that. And at LearnCoach, we're constantly looking at the feedback we get and how to improve each of these. So, as an example, as of a month ago, this answering step by step was only multiple choice. And then we had a bunch of teachers give the suggestion, hey, if you're able to do short answer and flip between multiple choice, that would be great. And so over a month, we were able to add that feature, and it's really good. So by all means, we love feedback. We're always looking, working with students to look at the ways that we could make things easier. So, it's likely that some of these things will change in a year, and that's only because we're constantly trying to see, how do we make it easier? How do we make it better? So your feedback is highly likely to be implemented if it's well thought out. Cool. I'll go out of here. We will. I won't show you anything else here, but when you come on to the trial next term, there will be a PLD tab. Sometimes it's just professional development. In New Zealand, we call it professional learning and development. So on there'll be a series of videos which show you as a teacher how to do each thing, like set up classes, monitor student work, assign homework, and the likes. And then I think I've got one more thing I want to show you before that I think will be useful, and then we'll finish it up there. And it was just a few use cases really quickly. So some of the ways that we think this could be useful for you to try. So there's students revising before the test, practicing questions. So that can be done, but to be honest, that can be done at home or at school. So you can give them time in class to self-study when the personalization part has been added, which will be there when you come next term. You can really just give your students time to study, and it'll help them go to the things that that they need to study, and that'll be different for every student. Diagnostics is a really good way. So when you're earlier on in the year, when you're going on, when you're teaching a particular unit or topic or subtopic that week, what you can do is, go look and find a few exam questions, maybe some one-mark question, maybe a 3-mark question. So find a few questions related to that topic or subtopic that you're teaching in class. And at the end of the week, or once you've taught something, try giving them a question. And then maybe you give it to them for homework, and then see how they engage with that question. And then you can go look at how the students have done and get a snapshot of how the students have done with that particular topic and how far away they are as a class or as individuals, taking what you've taught them and applying that in an exam setting. And you'll also get to see which students end up falling back to, hey, I need more extra help, or those that are like confident in being able to answer it without the help. And so you'll find the best way to use that, but definitely use it as a diagnostics to kind of capture where things are at. And then obviously for students that are absent, this is a good way to, you might provide them with the other material that you give them, textbook, whatever else you're giving them. But then, you can provide them with some catch-up questions so that they are starting to engage and not leave those exam questions to the last minute. So yeah, I think that's about time. But yeah, I just want to thank everyone for those that have turned up. Also those that watch this in the future via video. We really hope that you get value out of LearnCoach. Would love to hear your feedback. Go to Campion. They're amazing. They'll help get you set up for next term. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Adam, and for describing those study challenges and barriers and how LearnCoach is helping with them. So as Adam mentioned during the talk, to enable everyone to try LearnCoach, we've made it available to schools for free of charge for term 3. For those schools that then choose to continue on for 2027, either by purchasing the program or through the book list, they'll also be able to have term 4 for free. So if that's got your interest, or anything else in the presentation Adam gave, if you'd like to learn more, please reach out to your Campion account manager or directly to the CuratED team, and we can organise a more detailed demonstration for you. So thank you everyone for your attendance today, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thank you very much.